pretty much better to count him out. But, after what he did on Friday, and then you go back to what he did at the Players at Kapalua, you kind of knew he had that in him.
Yeah.
And, just his ability to get blazing hot with the putter. Of course, he's also become so good on approach, putting himself in those positions. But that was a really fun week last week, and kind of feels like a little bit of a letdown, as it usually does post-major, going from the old course to Minnesota. Nothing against Minnesota. I know we got a lot of DFS people in that state, and it is a nice course if you like water. So, but yeah, another thing I think to think about this week, we get to the final stretch of the season. We have weaker fields. There's a massive amount of FedEx Cup points on the line here, and a lot of these lower tier players, motivation is a real thing this time of year. These guys some of them are fighting for their tour lives, and so I think that's another thing to kind of focus on. Kind of these last 3 events till we get to the FedEx Cup playoffs.
Absolutely agree. I think, it's every week on the PGA Tour is ruthless. So, and just to have my 2 cents on Cam Smith, I've got the $100 bill shirt on today. It's the 3rd or 4th time I've only busted it out this year, and it's mainly because of Cam Smith. He's a beast. My favorite part about watching him play is whenever he wins a golf tournament, he breaks some sort of record. Like I think he broke the scoring record at Kapalua, broke a putting record at the Players, and then this week I think that 36-hole scoring record at the Open was just incredible by him. So he's just always super entertaining to watch. Love betting on him, love watching him play. What a fantastic event. So many cool storylines, and just a wonderful venue to have all those storylines come kind of to fruition. So awesome stuff. We got we got 6 more events for the rest of the year. So we got the Betsperts subscription that you can get for $1 for a month for the rest of the season. Everything you could wish for at Betsperts over there. It's only $1. I think Ron's got some new search tools and stuff out there. Ron, tell us about that nonsense.
So it's not anywhere close to where we want it to be yet, but we are making progress on search tools. Just as far as being able to take pretty much any metric, any split that you could ever dream of, and combining them all together. And of course, we'll eventually have where you can build your own custom models and all that stuff. I know there's a couple of really good sites out there that already do that. So of course, we are trying to do our best to reach that point and go even above that. So, it's out there now. It's free. Anybody can go on there, kind of test it out. And in fact, encourage you to go and test it out. We do need to make improvements still, but we encourage any feedback, any thoughts, any ideas to make it even better than even a couple of the sites that are already out there. So that's kind of our goal. But yeah, that $1 free per month is you don't even need that to test the tool out, but that's another great deal as well. Very cheap for the rest of the year.
Yeah, you've got all your articles out there. Everyone that's writing articles for Betsperts, all that stuff's out there. Everyone basically hit Cam Smith last week, so that was good that the team was all on him. So that was awesome. We got the 3M Open this week, Ron. It's a course that I think we can definitely take advantage of a few nuances. You want to go ahead and give us your kind of prediction of how you think the course is going to play this week? What kind of settings you're using in your models? What kind of golfers we targeting this week?
Yeah, so this quote by the one of the founders has kind of got a little steam here, and going back to 2019 when this event first started at TPC Twin Cities, Hollis Cavner gave this kind of brutally honest description of how he wanted the 3M Open to play, and he said, we want birdies and we want train wrecks. And so you definitely have birdies. It is a low scoring tournament, and you do have the train wrecks, and that's where the water comes into play here. You have 15 holes with water, and when you analyze the course even closer, you have 9 different holes have water off the tee. So guys who are teeing off 9 out of their 14 drives, water definitely comes into play. So that's kind of one of the biggest defense that this course has. You do have kind of wide open fairways, so it's not like you need to be extremely accurate. The water does come into play though, and that kind of tampers down the accuracy off the tee. Distance is something I'm looking at this week for sure, because it is a longer course. When you look at compared to other courses, it is the 7th longest course on tour, just by when you kind of go by par average. So distance is a thing here. When you look at the past winners, you see guys like Cameron Champ, Matthew Wolf. So, those guys definitely known for their distance.
Yeah.
I think approach, obviously ball striking is key here, because when you get into these type of birdie fests where, it pretty much comes down to staying dry off the tee, and then it's kind of target practice into these greens. These greens are very easy. They're pretty big, 6,500 square feet on average. They're relatively flat, so not a lot of undulations, not a lot of, when you look at the rankings, they're one of the easiest greens to putt on tour.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, opportunities gained when you look at birdie chances inside of 15 feet, and just kind of birdie your better percentage overall. These are all kind of really important things that we should be looking at this week.
Perfect. Yeah, I completely echo that sentiment with you with regards to ball strikers, birdie makers. Keep it in the fairway. Good drives gained for me is a big thing. And I want some guys with some good recent form as well, because in a field like this, you just don't know what's really coming your way. And I think trying to narrow down the field by going through a bit of recent form is going to be key. But that being said, on a DFS show, we have our models, we have our things that we like a typical prototype golfer to be, but there are obviously guys that hit it shorter, that have certain specific skill sets, like Cam Smith. If you're going to say a long driver last week would have won, he would have missed that boat. So I think there's definitely opportunity to get different and freaky, like we like to say over here, and find guys that are weird down at the bottom that don't typically fit this course skeleton. So yeah, we got three guys at the top of the box here. We got Tony Finau, Hideki Matsuyama, and Sung Jae Im in the 10K range. And it's a range that's intriguing to me, because one guy's way more popular, at least from what I've got in front of me now, than the other two, and that's being Tony Finau. And he's the most expensive. He's probably the biggest brand name that you have in the house, I'd say. The other two guys there's a lot to be concerned about, which I think we can take advantage of. What are you rolling with here in the 10K range, Ron?
This is definitely a week where you can look at these top three guys, and I don't think you have to play any of them. I think each of them, like you said, has their own kind of separate weaknesses. Hideki, who's usually so consistent, it seems like he's been a little bit off lately, whether it's the, going to live, whether it's that chatter that, who knows what's going on there. The big thing for me that has me off him is when you look at his last 5 events, he's gained 1 stroke or less off the tee in each of his last 5 events. And so, not that he's a wild driver of the ball, but here at this course where you want to have, and total driving is another key stat I should have mentioned, where you're looking at accuracy plus distance, and you kind of treat those equally. So you do want to have both of those this week. And, so that's somewhat concerning for me with him. Tony Finau is really intriguing as always. You look at the events he's won, and, this course does seem to be a really good fit. He has a really good history here. It's a weak field that he can take advantage of. But at that price, at 10.5, you almost need him to win. And so, there's just so much volatility with him off the tee sometimes. I kind of worry about him just having a bad hole or two, going in the water, double bogey here, double bogey there. And, before you know it, he's missed the cut, So sure. That's kind of my thing with him. I think he's got the lowest floor out of those 3. And then Sung Jae, like when you look at his recent numbers, his last 3 appearances, he's lost a total of 3.6 on approach. And of course, last week, he lost 10.4 putting, which is
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's very unusual for him.
Yeah.
So I don't worry about the putting as much this week. It's just, like you said, we want guys, even though, those 3 are really far, in my opinion, talent-wise above the rest of the field. Mm-hmm. You do want guys who are kind of trending upwards at least a little bit. And so another thing with Sung Jae, it usually takes him a little bit of time to break out of a slump. And so, I just don't know if this is the right course for him to kind of get right. And of course, at that price, we'll get to these guys below those 3. But yeah, what are your thoughts on those top 3?
Yeah, I think I love Tony. He's second in my model, but at that ownership, that price, I think I'm going to leave him alone. I'm almost dabbling with the idea of going with Sung Jae and Hideki as my 1-2 punch at the top, and then just getting super weird at the bottom. They 2 guys that could absolutely win this tournament. And yes, I know you mentioned that the guys are having some tough time recently, but they've both been playing over in Europe and things like that. So maybe if they come back to the home states, they'll be okay. And at that kind of ownership, I mean, we've got guys that are double this ownership in the 9K range, in the 8K range of these two dudes that are just insane players. So if they tap into their absolute potential, I'm really liking, they're both premium birdie makers. They really do well in the par fives. There's just a lot that I like about these guys in general. The recent form a bit of a concern. So yeah, if I do go with either of those three, I'd go with the two Asian guys, which I think are going to be back in their home environment here on the PGA Tour. And then we've got Sahith, Adam Hadwin, Maverick McNeely, and Davis Riley in the 9K range here. And this is going to be, I think the 9 and 8K range is where you're going to have to be dodging some major landmines this week. There's going to be some ownership, skyscrapers in this range. And I think you're going to have to decide if you want to join them or jump off them. And it's going to be fun with Davis Riley and Cameron Davis, both in that, 8-9K range that are going to be pushing 20 plus ownership. So yeah, what are you thinking in the 9K range, Aaron?
Yeah, this is where just for me personally, and I just see so much value here. Like, especially when you go, I think these top two, Thigala, I think this is a week he definitely could win. When you look at his numbers, I'm a little worried about him coming across the pond here, but, just being a young guy and not having much experience doing that. But, he's gained off the tee 5 straight tournaments for the first time in his career. So that's trending up. Since Mexico, he's 8 for 8 on made cuts with a pair of top 5s. He's got 4 top 25s. Everybody knows, he's got huge upside here. So there's definitely a path to the top for him. Same thing with Adam Hadwin. He's been so consistent all year. He was 4th and 6th on this course. And I guess we could talk about this too as we go through here. Course history is a little different here. When you look at the last 3 winners, their history has been non-existent. Of course, the first one, there was no tournament yet, but the last 2 guys had poor performances here. Cam Champ, and he comes through and wins. So it's not really much I'm looking at specifically course history wise, but I just think Adam Hadwin is a really good play for cash games. But my 3 guys are kind of in a row here, and you could probably go 4 when you get to Maverick McNeely, Davis Riley, Cameron Davis, especially. Like you said, these guys are going to be chalky, so you're going to really have to get different as you go down the board. But when you look at, for example, Davis Riley, everybody's going to be on him this week. Everybody's got a bet on him. He's had 3 weeks of rest, which I think is going to help him.
Yeah.
He's 23rd in the FedEx Cup standings, which I didn't realize he was that high. But when you look at his performances, it's pretty mind-blowing. And so, him being a first-timer to this course, I don't think that's going to hurt him at all. So, I think he's one of those guys who is just going to be really good chalk this week. And so he's someone that I'm willing to swallow. What are your thoughts on just kind of that top part there?
Yeah, no, I think we mentioned before the show that we wanted to really get into, how we differentiate ourselves between how our playing styles are. You're a lot more conservative. You like to take on a bit of chalk and then get different elsewhere, where I feel like I'm a lot more aggressive, and I really enjoy taking on that volatility of an event like this, where, if I'm going to be dodging landmines, I'm going to dodge all of them. I'm going to do my best too. And I think, yeah, Ron, like you were saying earlier, is what kind of, competitions do you get yourself in DFS when you kind of get into situations like this where it's volatile?
Yeah, so this, like we were talking earlier off camera, but this is an example of, with all the volatility. Okay, obviously golf is volatile, but then you add a wide open birdie fest. You add this to a weak field, and then you add the water on top of it, where guys who have 1 or 2 bad holes and they're done. So for me, this is an example of a week where I'm going to go maybe not as much mass multi-entry. So instead of 150 lineups, I'm going to focus more this week on those 3 max, 20 max, single entry, just because with the volatility like it is. I'm, like you said, a little more conservative than you are. I play a little bit more chalk. And so I think you can get away with that more in these types of events, as far as if you're playing, kind of those smaller field tournaments that DraftKings, and other places offer. So that's kind of my angle this week. I know you play it a little different. I know you really more about ownership than I am. So what's your take on that, kind of that topic as well?
Yeah, no, and I think you do a great job of picking chalky guys and then differentiating yourself with 3 or 4 other guys that aren't necessarily that, high owned by the rest of the community. So I think, that's a big key factor. If you really like someone and you set on him, go for it, but make sure you get weird. You have to you can't just throw in Cameron Davis, Davis Riley, Brendan Steele, and Adam Svensson all in the same lineup. That's just not gonna. I don't think that's gonna pay dividends at all. But for me, I typically do about 40 lineups and then a few 3-entry and like Pat Mayo events and stuff like that. So in my 40 entry tournaments, I do 220s, and I typically try and get quite aggressive. So I'll be looking to dodge most of the guys that are going to be pushing 20% ownership this week, and that's just how I play. And I lose a lot, but when you win, you should be winning a bit more because you're way different. So it's interesting. I love that we have that 2 differing opinions on how to go about our game, and it's ours. We can do whatever we want. So getting back to the 8K range here, though, Ron, we've got Cameron Davis, Cameron Tringali leading off, and then we've got Ches Reavie, Adam Long, JT Poston, Brendan Steele, Martin Laird, and Nick Hardy, all in this range. There's some high-owned guys. There's some definite pivot opportunities with Ches. I don't think he's coming in nearly as backed as I think you'd expect after a guy's just won a tournament, and he's been playing really good golf leading into that win. So I'm curious as to how you're going to go about navigating your way through the 8K, yeah, Ron.
Yeah, so like I said, Cameron Davis is another guy who I just think is a really good fit for this course. When you look at some of the comps, other courses that are similar, obviously you have the water courses like a PGA National, a TPC Sawgrass, but then you have some of the other ones, kind of Midwestern courses like Detroit Golf Club, which of course Cameron Smith won last year. John Deere is another one that kind of fits with this course. So, just Cam Davis, 4 top 10s in the last 3 months. He has the length off the tee. He's trending upwards off the tee. I know he kind of had a reputation there for being kind of a sprayer, and the water, might come into play this week. He's just such a streaky birdie maker. He's 6th birdie or better in this field for me. He loves bent grass putting. Like, his bent grass putting is, and I know you specialize in this as well, but his numbers compared to his baseline are way above on bent grass. And so, I don't think you can go wrong with Cam Smith in this range
Davis,
either.
yeah.
And then another Cameron I really like, and he's a little bit lower owned, around 13% right now, Cameron Tringali. I know he's been getting a lot of his work done with the putter and the short game. And of course, we want ball strikers here.
Yeah.
But just when you look, 3rd and 16th on this course, he has a really good course average here, 68. And when you look at double bogeys or worse, he's first in the field at avoiding those. And so maybe more of a safer play. But I think he's a guy. And actually, when I look at birdie or better, he's 13th in the field in birdie or better. So it's not like he's weak in that area either. So, those 2. Adam Long is a guy who, to me, is, he's not really a name people click on, but especially at 8,600. But he's kind of a top 25 machine when you look at his recent performances. And he's had 2 top 25s here. So I just think he's a really quality play. Maybe not as high owned as you get a little lower here with, a Brendan Steele, who's 20%. People are going to be remembering JT Poston, who's high as well. So if you're trying to, like you said, trying to navigate the ownership field here, I think Tringali, Long, those are 2 names you could definitely click on.
Yeah, I would definitely also add Ches Reavie in that little sandwich of Davis and Cam, and the 2 Davises. That's really weird. We got some weird names going on here. We got Davis, Cameron Davis, and then Cameron Tringali. It's just a weird trio of names coming in there. But I'm a big fan of Ches Reavie. He's also got some great course history at this place. So if you can just get over the fact that he won last week, and maybe he's also just thinking, look, I just won the Barracuda. It's like a random points game. I don't even know what the heck they're playing there. So maybe he comes out and says, I'm going to actually win an actual PGA Tour event, and let's go back to back. At 7% owned in the single figures there for a guy that's playing some fantastic golf. Sign me up. I'm all for that. And then Martin Laird is going to be another guy that's just one of those premium ball strikers that has always been lackluster when it comes to putting and chipping. So at an event like this, where you're possibly hoping for some putt luck and just leaning on that ball striking, he's one of those guys that's probably going to be less owned than the rest of the guys in this bunch because they're all very popular names, and Martin Laird's probably going to be sneaking away with ownership closer to 10%, and all these other guys could be pushing 20 or 18%. So really liking that play there from Martin Laird. He's got a very similar, ball striking build to Brendan Steele in a way, but not nearly as elite as him right now. But love Martin Laird at that kind of discount. So he's one of my favorite plays in this range too. And then I'll start off the 7Ks with Chris Gotterup, who I think is good. I've got an outright on him. I think he's a fascinating prospect as a rookie on tour. Yeah, he's only had 5 events. I think he's made 3 cuts, missed 2, had a T4 at the John Deere, losing putting. So, I mean, he's the kind of guy, that blueprint we're looking for. It's just incredible ball striking. Where's the putter going to show up? I think, there's an absolute chance that does happen this week in a weaker field. He's finally had 5 events under his belt. There's a lot that you can argue for him, but also he's going to be so ludicrously owned in the $7,900 range there. I think, depending on where you get chalky, you're going to have to probably dodge him at a few plots. So, yeah, what's the 7K range looking for you like at the top run?
So when we look through kind of this, and this range is huge. Like when you get to here and you drop down to the 6, like I think I heard there's like over 90 golfers, which is a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
But this is where I think, and this was kind of my strategy last week, which was somewhat successful, where you kind of you don't take the top tier, you kind of start, and that's kind of what my plan is this week, is to go with that, McNeely, Riley, Cameron, Davis, and Tringali range, and then kind of mixing and matching down here, because I think there's so many viable options. And this is kind of where, for me, I'm going to try to get my ownership back.
Okay.
I do like Gotterup, like you, have an outright on him. For a few minutes there, he was 65 to 1 on DraftKings for a really short time. And so it's hard to catch those. But if you're ready, that makes a difference. I think just his same price. I think Ryan Palmer is an interesting name here. We saw him have some success recently. I forget the tournament it was, but just a veteran guy who, I know he is going to be volatile because he is known for hitting it into the water. He's one of the most water double bogey type players, along with Patton Kizzire, by the way, who I am not playing this year, who I made the mistake of playing last year. But he's a guy with some upside, I think, if he can obviously stay out of the water. When you look at Jason Day here, a lot of people are off him just because on these easier courses where you have to go low, he is not known for being the type of golfer to get it done here. But at 3% ownership in a weak field,
that's $7,800 as well.
Yeah,
that's
and we all know,
price tag.
And he's been working on his game. Like the reports are, he has been practicing every day. Like he is really trying to get his approach game down, and that's kind of what's killing him right now. Like he's 113th in my approach model for the week. It's been pretty bad. He has been good off the tee, but so it's just kind of like, he's a guy that I'm willing to take a chance on. Like you said, 7,800. Even Ricky Fowler, like I don't expect Ricky Fowler to finish with a top 10 or anything like that. But if Ricky Fowler can get you a top 20 this week, which he has shown some signs of life recently, I think at 7,700, this is for me where you have to get creative with some of these guys. And, of course, people are sour on both Day and Fowler. And so if you can get an edge here, and if one of those guys can come through with the top 10, top 20, I think that's worth it. And then I'll go down one more here. Adam Svensson, have an outright on him as well. But when you're looking at, 23%, even though his price, I think, along with Tom Kim, he's probably the most underpriced guy on here at 7,600. But if you look at his same price, Dylan Fratelli, I was pretty amazed to look that he had made 13 out of 14 cuts. So he's been really consistent. And, he finished 28th at the Open last week. He was 20th or 18th here back in 2020. And of course, he won the only tournament he's won, the John Deere, which is a comp to this course. And so I think at 4%, right around there, I think Dylan Fratelli is a great play just to kind of counter those people that are on Adam Svensson.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I love going for guys either side of a popular play like Svensson, and I've mentioned Emiliano Grillo a few times on the show, and I think I'll do it again because he's popping as a 6th ranked guy in my model. He's a ball striking machine, right? So if we're leaning into that ball striking narrative at 13% owned is also, I mean, Emiliano Grillo over there is a little rough, but if he's 6th ranked in my model, I can assume he might be priced towards the middle of the 8K range for me, you know. So I'm okay taking on that kind of ownership on a guy that I think is undervalued. And he's got that ball striking we just love to see. And he's a birdie machine as well. He makes the 6th amount, you know, most birdies in this field, which is what we're looking for. And I'm a big fan of CT Pan as well. He's going to be just, he's been playing some good golf lately too. So if he can get his putter figured out and really start wiring in, I think we're going to see some nice stuff there. And then I'll start us off in the bottom of this range here, Ron, and kind of go into a Lucas Glover little spiel because he's one of those elite ball strikers as well. You know, off the tee, he's going to be hitting that beautiful little draw. I think he's going to be pounding fairways. He's one of the top 20, top 15 in this field in good drives gained, which I love to see. It's all about the putting, and it's not necessarily been that fantastic of late, but he can get it going on the ball striking front and go nuclear there. So at 5% owned, I'm a big fan of him down in this range too. And then one more guy I've been messing around with far too much is Stuart Sink. He's one fun guy to put in your player pool because he's up to so much stuff in a 2 or 4 day stint on a PGA Tour event. He makes so many birdies. He makes so many dumb bogeys and dumb decisions that it just blows my mind. But again, I think it's the around the green stuff that really seals the deal for him. And at this event, I think we can get away with that a little bit. So I'm really liking Stuart Sink, just especially at the 5% tag. He's one of my favorite golfers. I think he's got massive upside when he goes off. He can go off. He's won last year, so twice. So those are my guys I like in this range. Sell me on a few of yours.
So, and this is for everyone out there. So I think this is a week, and even going back to the past course history here, where people should not shy away from players who struggle around the green and with their short game, putting, all that stuff, because that's just not going to have as much of an impact this week. When you look at Cameron Champ last year, he entered the 3M last year as a bottom 10 putter on the whole tour, and he ended up leading the field in putting for the week last year. And so, you know, you have numerous players in this range who kind of fit that. You know, they're excellent ball strikers, they're horrible putters. And so actually, when you look at it, it's actually filled with players. You could start with Garrett Kigo at 7,500. You know, great off the tee and on approach, but just horrible with the short game. Emiliano Grillo, like you said, Doug Gim. You can even go further down here to, I guess, a guy we'll talk about that we've had some discussions on, Mr. Tom Hoagie. He's another guy who, you know, just such a good ball striker, but he's been really struggling around the greens. And so, you know, I think for betting or for DFS, you know, the key part is trying to select these guys who could put it all together this week by making those putts. And of course, again, we got easier greens. And so, you know, I just want scores. I want players who can score and put themselves in position. And so, again, that's kind of my strategy here. And so, those guys I love, like I said, Doug Gim, you know, a top 20 ball striker. When you look at another comp course, like we said, with the water, the players, TPC Sawgrass, you know, he finished 6th there. Yeah. And so, you know, he's got really some decent form, top 20s at the Scottish Open and in Canada. If you go down, of course, Joo Hyun Kim, a lot of people saying the most underpriced guy. And I think that's a fair assessment because he's 40th in the world rankings, and yet he's sitting here at 7,300. 20 years old only. You know, he's kind of become this legendary figure. Of course, made the cut last week at the Open, and then, of course, he's coming over here this week. So, obviously, the ownership, I think we have him right now right around 12%. I would not be shocked if that jumps a lot higher as people kind of dig in more. Troy Merritt's another guy here at 7,400, you know, Midwestern guy, Minnesota guy. Reading some of his history, it sounds like he might have played this course more than anyone. You know, he played it in college. He played it growing up. You know, he was 7th here back in 2019. So he's a guy who kind of tends to pop, you know, kind of Detroit, these kind of golf courses in the Midwest. So I like him. And I'll let you start the Tom Hoagie discussion here. Of course, you know, I think when his odds came out at 130-1 on DraftKings, you know, I just thought that was ridiculous. And then, of course, you came back with the whole missed cut thing, which I didn't realize he had actually missed 5 cuts in a row. So What have your thoughts changed on him at all, or are you still
They moving in the right direction for you, Ron, because I'm seeing he's ninth in my model, and I'm a big baseline guy, so he's definitely got that bounce back opportunity. And it's whether you got to weigh up the options. Am I going to get risky and take on a guy that's missed 5 straight cuts in a row, who we know can win? You know, he's very accurate off the tee typically, and his irons are fantastic. If he gets hot with the putter, we're in business. He's $7,100. It allows you to do a whole bunch of other stuff upstairs. He's going to be under 10% owned, and he's ninth in my model. So I feel like that's the 6 cut thing was a bit of a concern for me, especially for an outright though. That was a problem for me, but I'll take him at $7,100 over here, at 8%. He's one of the better players in this field. We are not playing in a top quality field this week. So you got to remember that. So those 6 cuts or 5 cuts I think a few of them were also like majors. So, that's definitely, against him there. But I saw a question in the chat about jet lag, and I'm from South Africa. So I've come across the ocean quite a few times, and the easiest jet lag isn't necessarily like dealing with getting off an airplane. It's dealing with the time zone changes. So coming east to west was the easiest for me. I just go to bed earlier. That's all that I do. And I'd get right back into the swing of things very, very, very easily. Going east is a nightmare. So I don't have that big of a concern for guys coming back from the Open versus having, gone to the Open the week off. I think that's a bit of which people never even really spoke about. So just to address that question, I think that's a good question. And it's probably going to drive a few guys' ownership down because you've come back from Europe, you've sucked over there. It's a completely different course. So you can come to a course like this, which is a bit more target golf. Possibly the wind will still be up in the Midwest, but it's still going to be very target oriented. And if you hit your spot, you're golden. You don't have those mounds and bumps that can cause, a lot of volatility down the leaderboard, which we saw guys really struggling. Like that Sungjae putting performance was disgusting. So it's just interesting. I think they stand a very good chance of bouncing back this week, especially back in the States. So, yeah. I got Nate Lashley down in the 7K range as well. I'm targeting. He's been playing good golf lately. One of the premier good drive percentage guys, which incorporates hitting it close to the fairway and then onto the green. And that's what we're looking for. Yeah, he's a really good ball striker when he's firing, and he's got some seriously impressive putting stats for solo down on the board over here too. Also a birdie machine. And then we get into the 6K range over here, where we'll lead it off with Hank Lebioda, Sam Ryder, Ryan Armour, and then we get down into the middle here, Ryan Moore, Chase Seifert, Arson Cook. Those are some guys that I'm kind of looking at. I'm a big fan of Ryan Armour, especially he leads this field for me in my model in good drive percentage. So he just gets it in the fairway, gets it on the green. Lord help him when it comes to putting. So at $6,900, I'm a big fan of Ryan Armour. I don't think he's going to be super high owned either. He's got a good history here too, so love to see that from a guy down in the 6K range. And then, Chase Seifert is another guy I think he's going to be super low owned too, and he's also 12th in the field in good drives gained. So that incorporates, the off the tee and approach stuff again, and I just love to see that from him. It's the short game that lets him down. So I'm okay kind of ignoring a lot of that stuff at the bottom of the slate. If I've got a guy that struggles on the short game side at the top with a lot of high owned percentage, I might use that as a reason to get off the ship. But down at the bottom, yeah, I'm totally content kind of taking a gamble on a guy's short game coming to town quickly for the week and knowing the ball striking is going to be there. So, yeah, those are a few guys in the upper nines. Yeah, we can really go dumpster diving after this range and see where we can find down at the bottom of the sixes. But who do you like, Ron?
And just going back to roster construction, kind of that discussion we were having earlier, this is kind of where, for me, if I'm playing 3 guys in the 9K and that ownership is getting a little high, this is where I'll take like 10% of guys down here and I'll mix and match. And I think you can get different enough, even if you're going, if you set some restrictions on your, total amount that you're spending on lineups, if you go down to 49.5, 49.6, and you're not spending the whole 50K, I think that's another good strategy for this week. But
yeah,
just going back to really quick, another guy at 7,100 that I forgot about, who kind of, and there's a lot of guys here that fit that mold, like we said, with poor short game, and that's Tyler Duncan. His ball striking, he's 13th in the field. He's really good as far as his recent form. And so I think this is another guy who kind of fits the style here of poor short game, really good ball striker. And that's kind of the only thing I'm looking for when I get this low for this week is ball striking. And,
Yeah.
a guy like Michael Gligic, who's 7K flat, he's another guy. If you're looking for a guy in kind of the last one into your lineup, he's made 8 of 9 cuts. He's got 3 top 30s recently. He's 145th in the FedEx Cup standings. And so kind of that's another angle I'm going to look at with some of these guys is, who's right on the edge, who needs some good weeks here. Obviously, we both played golf. I know you played a little more as far as on the tournament side, but, as far as you'd hope to think guys are motivated all the time. But, these guys, perhaps maybe digging a little deeper this week, maybe a little more preparation. He plays his best on easy courses. He's got some sneaky distance. He's really good on the par fives. And so I think Gligic at 7K. And Lashley is a guy who, he's kind of the ultimate boomer bust guy. When you look at his last 11 events, he has 7 top 27s, and then he has 4 missed cuts.
Yeah.
So he's either top 27 or he's missing the cut. And of course, a few years ago, he won Detroit, which is a comp to this course. And so I think Lashley's a great play at 7K. And
I like it.
yeah, just going down further, like it's going to be pretty skim for me down here. Now, Chase Seifert, I really like as well. He's 34th ball striking. Had a conversation with him a while back. He grew up in Florida, and he literally played nothing but lake-filled courses growing up. So he said he's really comfortable, on these courses where there's water everywhere. And when you look at his results, they kind of show that. And, he's got some decent finishes here. So Chase Seifert is a guy I really like. Doc Redman's another one who is just kind of been pretty bad around the green. But again, with the green and regulation percentage, approaching 72% here, you just don't have to worry about that as much this week, I don't think. And so I really like Doc Redman at 68. And then Ryan Moore is another one who just kind of a really good ball striker, off the tee on approach that I am kind of be looking at. And he's kind of getting close to the bottom here for me. Just scrolling down, like maybe Vaughn Taylor, he's had some good weeks here.
Yeah.
But once you start getting below that, it's pretty much a hard pass for me.
Cool. I'll get real ballsy and go to the bottom of this dumpster. I've got a few guys that I think I might have as just little kind of, if I get real heavy up top, kind of roll with the Chris Stroud, who his recent ball striking has been quite nice for a guy that's down at the bottom of the field over here. The around the green stuff has been his biggest concern. Another guy that I'm a big fan of is Aaron Bradley, who's also shown he's got like a little bit of, ball striking capacity for him for a guy that's all the way down in the $6,300 range. He's also typically a very good putter over a long period of time. Recently, not so hot. And it's just interesting getting into these guys down at the $6,400 range because they can make or break a big deal for you. If they can get hot, no one's going to own these guys. And if they finish inside the top 10, so that's kind of how if I go with Sungjae and Lindeque, I might just be cycling these guys through a few ways and just hoping to get that Sungjae and Lindeque make it through, and then a few of these guys manage to scrape through too. So, yeah. Who would you say, Ron, is your oh yeah, we got a comment over here as well that's asking about Danny Willett. We already addressed Jason Day, but Danny Willett is rested and coming back into a weak field, this Rogues drummer says. And I'm really curious as to your thoughts, Ron, because Danny's one of those guys that gets a lot of his strokes around the green and on the green. He's not one of the best ball strikers in the field. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on Danny Willett? I think he's an interesting character.
Yeah, Willett's always a guy who, to me, is like, if there's poor conditions, if it gets now, there is some wind. Now, if you look at the forecast, there is some wind coming, kind of on the weekend more, even Thursday afternoons, a little bit here. So, that could help a guy like him. But for me, he's a guy who, if the scoring conditions are much tougher, we're talking -8, -9. I think we're looking at anywhere between 15 to 20 under this week.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's a guy who's, when you look at the scoring stats, he's 66th in birdie or better. He's 108th in opportunities. So, he can get hot with the flat stick. He is really good around the green, but that just kind of doesn't fit the course mold this week. And so, yeah, he's a guy that I will not be on this week.
Yeah, myself included. I'm a big fan of him in the tough conditions, like you mentioned. So cool. So to wrap this up, who are you leaning towards, Ron, in the very small? Let's go from 8K and above because there's not really too much to even glom onto there. Who's your favorite up top there? And then give me someone underneath that you're really gonna be keying in on this week.
So Adam Long is a guy who, like I said earlier, his ownership is not sky high. It's kind of in that mid range. He's a guy who I'm going to have as a lot of my kind of my core lineups this week. And of course, I'll be using a lot of Davis Riley, Cam Davis, Maverick McNeely, and kind of mixing and matching that group of players. I think one thing to keep in mind this week is you don't have a lot of win equity in this tournament. There's not a lot of guys who have actually won. And so if you're skipping that top range and kind of dipping down to this 9 upper 8K range, I think you want to almost load up on these guys. You almost jam as many of these. You can easily fit 4 of these guys into a lineup and kind of take 2 chances down low.
Sure.
Of course, with all the volatility this week, I think that's a really good strategy. So Adam Long would be my main guy here. And then if we're going below 8K, I think it's going to be Dylan Fratelli. I just think the consistency that he brings, as far as just he's a cut maker, he's got good form coming in. He's had success here on this course in the past. He kind of checks all the boxes. And so, I think those are 2 guys who kind of lesser owned, who will be very important parts of my core this week.
Cool. Yeah. You know what's crazy about Fratelli's game is you watch him at the John Deere and he's just chaotic, just all over the place, dropping from under trees and stuff. But yet he's managing to just get into the weekend almost every weekend, which is a great testament to him there for sure. I'm going to go with Stuart Sink at $7,300. I don't recommend it unless you like a lot of pain, but he offers a lot of upside for someone that's going to be low owned down at the bottom of this slate. And then I'm going to cheat a little bit and say my 2 favorite players are going to be Hideki and Sanjay. Unless I see something that's turning me off of them from an injury or random, we'll see if their bags even show up, because I know that's been a massive issue getting back from Scotland. Bags just going missing in the airport there. So I'm going to probably tag team those guys up at the top there and just kind of get frisky at the bottom. So yeah, that's kind of it for me. Anything else you've got that you want to share with the people, Ron? What's going on for you the rest of the week?
Yeah, and we all obviously welcome any feedback on the show. If there's things those of you watching who want to see, I know there's not a whole lot of discussion on, lineups and contest selection, as far as what types of lineups to play on a weekly basis. We want to get into that pretty much every week. So yeah, any other angles out there that you want us to look at, just leave us some feedback. But yeah, so we got, obviously betting article and then DFS, and then first round leader should be really interesting this week. It looks like the morning wave on Thursday is going to have a pretty clear advantage. Of course, it's only Tuesday, but really hot in Minnesota right now. And, when those winds kick up, especially with all the water, that could create some havoc. And so
Awesome.
you definitely want to keep an eye on that for first round leader when you get to that on Thursday.
Awesome. Yeah, no, keep an eye on that. Go check all of Ron's stuff at the Betsperts situation there. It's $1 for the subscription for the rest of the season. You can catch me. I'll be doing my podcast later tonight and back 9 bets at 6:00 Central, 7 Eastern. And then I'll have a Breaking 100 article that I write for Rotoballer as well out later this afternoon. So yeah, that was a fun Byron first inaugural maiden voyage, Ron. Really thank you for being on that with me. And thanks to everyone that was watching. Really appreciate your guys' support. We'll catch you guys next Tuesday. All right.